Hello, Megan.
Hello, Michelle.
Welcome to the Spicy Brain podcast, where we are navigating neurodiversity with curiosity, joy, and
radical acceptance. High kick.
I like how you do the high kick now, like low.
Yeah.
Is that on purpose for funsies or?
It is because, it's on purpose because, like, when I listen to it and it's not low, it drives me crazy.
Oh, okay.
So I like it better.
It's all
like,
about you.
It's all about me, really. It's really what it is. It has nothing to do with anybody else, just me.
Well, welcome to those of you who are new. Get ready for the ride because this is how it goes, where we just kind of are off the cuff. We definitely are so excited. We have a bunch of new people who've been coming and listening. And for those of you who are returning, we just appreciate you so much. We have so many amazing community members. And we really focus on all things neurospicy. So we started really with ADHD. We do go back to that a lot, but we've kind of expanded.
Yeah.
You know, and we usually read a book. And our current book is The Essential Guide to Raising Complex Kids
by Elaine Taylor-Klaus.
Yes. And the idea of this book, we usually go through the chapters and we're sort of doing it in real time. So you're hearing our actual feels or thoughts based on that. And we usually like dig into my brain or Megan's brain, one of us. And then we try to have strategies, but we don't always have them. So this book is kind of cool because we've been talking a lot about parenting, about different forms of parenting, that we parent each other, ourselves. Sometimes you're part of a community of people and you're using some of those parenting skills. And then sometimes you have a biological kid or an adopted kid or a step kid or somebody, you know, that's younger that you're working with. But the idea of this is that they have some sort of complex issue that will follow them to adulthood.
Yeah.
Right. Or that is in your own adulthood, still something going on. So it's a brain-based disorder or metabolic disorder. We've had conversations a little bit about the term disorder, but the idea is that it is something that you deal with, whether it's ADHD or autism or anxiety. And then the metabolic stuff, you know, gluten allergies and food allergies, type 1 diabetes, things that are going to be following into your adulthood. And you have to figure out kind of how to navigate that. And when you're parenting somebody with those issues, you have to think about that as well. And it can be kind of a higher ask in a way of like, you have to really be thoughtful and curious. So anyway, this book's sort of starting that.
Yeah. Anything that makes you other in society. You know, anything that that really just like societally puts pressure on you as a parent, that's what we're talking about.
Absolutely. And so we're in the middle of chapter 2. We've been in the middle of this for a little bit because there's all these different sort of archetypes or I don't know the right word, but, you know, sort of this sort of classifications of parenting styles. And she starts this chapter with really saying these are styles that can be sort of detrimental, could be suboptimal, not as helpful necessarily. And that first sign of all of this, or the first part of this, is identifying for yourself. Do you see yourself in any of these? So the last 2 episodes would be about that. We'll probably make a playlist out of this one just so you'd have to listen to a few of them. But okay, we're going to do our last 3.
Yes, last 3.
Okay, so the first one I want us to go over is, you know how she always has these like labels that are supposed to not be gender
But then they're totally gendered.
So we'll have to figure out what the names are for these. But she calls it demanding Randy.
Okay.
So Randy or Rhonda, maybe. Sure. It's also not an alliteration, which I know you don't like, but yeah, it's rough.
How about demanding Dave and Darlene?
Okay, demanding Dave and Darlene. I love it. So they have high expectations.
Okay.
They accept that their kids, you know, or anyone with that they're parenting for have these challenges, but they don't want them to use them as an excuse. Okay. And if you're this person, you might think that your co-parent or whoever's with you, demanding Dave or Darlene, is going to be coddling. You're too easy on the kid. And the thing you might say is you need to do what is expected of you.
Yeah. I've heard that a lot.
You have like personally heard that a lot?
I mean, no, I haven't personally heard that a lot, but I hear that a lot in like television and in movies.
You know? Oh, yeah.
Especially on like, I don't know, like Hallmark ones. I've been watching a lot of these like holiday movies. It's like, I have to do this. I have to keep the farm open for Dad's sake because he just passed away this past year. You know, it's like whatever it is, it's demanding.
Okay, so you've got to do this thing. I think it's funny because Josh and I went to go to San Francisco. This story is kind of like iconic in my mind because, you know, I knew I had this. I had been recently divorced and I wanted to, you know, make sure that I was soaking up all the time with Josh that I had as a kid, right? And trying to create experiences for him. And so I was always trying to like push it beyond what I had the finances or emotional or mental capacity to do at all times, right? Like it was just, I was on that track of feeling so guilty about having been divorced and dealing with all of that. And so I remember I was telling a friend this the other day, like we went to San Francisco and I'm like, you know, it's not a great motel when you have to ask for light bulbs.
What? No.
There weren't light bulbs in the lights, like the side lamps. You know what I mean? There was like a bulb in the main room, but there wasn't. Anyway, so we go, and the whole reason we went is because Josh wanted to go to Alcatraz, which I was like, okay, so we get over there, we get on the boat, we get to it was really interesting actually, and the history part of it was really fascinating. But I remember he got to pick something he wanted from the gift shop, and I said, yeah, you can pick one thing, Josh, and he picks a mug, which I just thought was so funny. And it was like there's all these rules, you know, but the one that he picked, and it was all the rules that the inmates had. And his rule was you'll do what you're told or something, right? Like do your work as required or whatever. And it was kind of, it's funny to me that he sort of had that idea of, I don't know. I think he like was empathizing with that, with his school life and whatnot at that moment. Like you'll do what you're told basically. Yeah. And I think about that in this one where there's no real room for you.
That's a good point.
Or your eccentricities or your thing. Like you're just going to do what you're told to do. And as a parent, there are times when I really identify with like, with this just one, right?
You're like, I'm exhausted.
Get the socks on.
Just do it.
Just get the socks on. We need socks. We need socks, you know, or whatever it is. And so I think that there's moments that I can, especially when you yourself are tired.
Yeah. And I think like, you know, like with all of these things, I think that like you can have moments. It's the fact that like, if you were talking to somebody and then you would say to them like, well, you're coddling your kid if you don't expect them to put the socks on in the morning, right? Like it's like it's one thing to have like those like where you just feel that way, but like you're not the one who's like saying, well, no, he has to get it done. He has to get his socks on every morning, otherwise I'm coddling him. Right. So I think that's like, I think it's like where like, you know, you can have these things come out, but it's also not like your parenting style if it's the next. Okay. The ADHD is a little strong today, guys.
A little strong in ours. Yeah. A little strong.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's the coddling part, the thing that you think you're helping them because you think you're not going to coddle them.
Okay, I'm going to bring this up though because I teach at the university. So I see a lot of kids by the time they're 18.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I've taught over 35,000 students. I don't know them all individually, right? But I run a course it's a lot of people over the years, maybe more now. And I've seen over time, and it's definitely been in the past like 3 or 4 years, this idea of like, that's not comfortable for me. I don't feel comfortable with that. There's a lot about comfort. And I was watching the Reluctant Traveler you got me turned on to with Eugene Levy. And I liked the one in India where the guy says something along the lines of like, India is uncomfortable. The guy who like was showing him India. So it was from his perspective. India, the whole thing can be uncomfortable, but in terms of traveling in it for foreigners, but that you will get comfortable with the discomfort.
Yeah.
And so Okay, so that's where
this
this
is
part of like sometimes you have to demand a little bit from people.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not demand though, but it's like set expectations that there's going to be things that you need to do. I think it's about how you have the conversation, how you're saying it, how you're, but I do think like the idea that it's not necessarily a demand, but it's like, these are things that need to get done, or these are things that we want you to learn how to do, or I don't know. So that, to me, there's somewhere in between on this one, but.
Well, and this is reminding me of a video as I saw where they were talking about how Gen X and millennials like us, we were like, because on a whole, this is like very generic, you guys, but like on a whole, they said that because Gen X and millennials were raised by the baby boomers who were like, you will do X, Y, and Z, that they shifted and went the opposite way of like, well, they can just do whatever they want. And like, we're not going to have, like, I didn't want to feel bad when I was a kid, so I'm not going to make them feel bad. And kind of, the pendulum like went from one extreme to another extreme. And so now we're realizing like, okay, well, that whole idea of like allowing the kid to like be dictating when they feel good and when they don't feel good is actually not helpful for children long run.
They need some structure. Yeah.
With that said, I think that there has to be a concerted effort for parents, or if you're parenting yourself, to understand the limitations and the reality of the expectations.
Yeah.
I say this because I keep thinking about our Busha, like our grandmother, that like you as a parent would never expect a kid in a wheelchair to do certain things. Right.
Right.
So I think it's the question of understanding, like, if you expect me to be on time, and that is something that you have to like, if that's the expectation is that, no, you will be on time, then
Or
you're
the
setting,
demand.
that's the demand, right? Then you're setting me up for failure. I think it's about like, how, like, what are tools, like, okay, you're always going to have trouble. Like, this is probably going to be something that's a challenge for you. So what are the things?
Like, first of all, acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Acknowledge this is going to be a challenge, because what you're saying partly too is like making visible the invisible.
Correct.
Right. Because it's not visible that I have a gluten allergy. It's
Right.
not visible that you have ADHD. It's not visible that I struggle with dyslexia. It's like those things are not visible. So how do you, how do you make visible the invisible?
And I think I think the thing is, like, if you start at a young age with them saying, like, with these kids and be like, look, you're never going to be on time. It's totally okay. Like, that's just not what, that's not your brain's super skill, right?
Time blindness is something that you got to know about.
Right. And so if it starts off, if you're the one who like gets the kid, right? I just keep I'm thinking about the dogs. Like, if you get the puppy, you can raise the puppy however you want it to be raised, right? Like, you can help them. And so if you start off at a very young age saying, look, buddy, you're going to have time blindness. That's a thing. It's not on you. That is just how your brain works. It doesn't have any negative connotation to it.
How does that relate to the puppy?
If you get a senior dog, or if when you're hearing this and when you're coming to this realization, the whole up till now, right, where we talk about up until now, it's been a certain way. If up until now, and it's not like from when they were really, really young, if like, up until now is like, Michelle, you're talking like 18, right? I'm looking at me at 44. Right? If my up until now is not, if it's not starting at like a young age, then I think saying you're never going to be able to do this is not the right approach. So
yeah, you've talked to me about that. Like, the wording that I'm using is stressful to you sometimes. Like, if I'm saying about Josh or something, I'm like, well, he's never going to have a butler. So, and you're like, well, but that's like, what are you saying? Like, that doesn't help him.
Right. So like, I think the reason why I keep thinking about like the dog is that like when it comes to like the puppy, you can teach them sit and commands like at a really young age, and you can teach them exactly how you want them to, like, they're much more trainable. Whereas like when you have a rescued dog that's had time and trauma and anything else beyond a knowledge that you have, like if they've ever not been in your home and like you just don't know, with a traumatized dog, like you're spending the first year just trying to learn what the dog does, right? You're just trying to learn like who the dog and the personality, like you're just like, I just literally am observing Harold, he's our new dog. And I have certain expectations, but like he pees on everything. And so like, yeah, my expectation is that like, he's not going to pee in the house. But the reality is that he came to me at 5 years old, having been fully intact. And so when he was neutered, he's going to always pee in the house. So it's like, there's nothing that I can do to like stop him. If I try to stop him from peeing in the house, I am going to cause trauma to him. And I notice I cause trauma to him. So instead of saying like, buddy, you're never going to pee in the house, I just put a belly band on him. And I just have cleaning supplies that will help for that. So it's like, it makes sense in my head what I'm trying to say. I realize this may not make sense to anybody else.
Well, let me see if I can kind of like connect it to what I think you're trying to say, but I don't want to say I know what you're trying to say because I'm with you on the journey and I'm curious. I think it's this idea that you're not, and I actually don't think it matters if they're a baby or not. When someone has a brain-based or metabolic disorder, I think it's certainly you can teach them early on how to frame it for themselves so they don't feel shame about who they are. Once somebody has already sort of imprinted this shame, then it takes a long time to unwind that. Right. And that's what I see with you and me is that we're trying to figure out like, how do we just accept who we are, how our brains work and not apologize for them. And that's the work we're doing. What would be cool is if we could go back in time to little Rosie and little Michelle and be like, hey, like you're exactly fine as you are. Like you don't need to worry. Like that's not the way we would frame it. Like, for example, like with the clothes, I think the goal is that you feel good about yourself. Because when you feel good about yourself, then you're going to attract other people who are going to want to be with you. So let's work on that. Let's work on how do you feel good about yourself on a daily basis? What do you need for that? Maybe it's not doing your hair. Maybe it's not your clothes. Maybe it's something totally different. I need sparkles on every day, and then that would make me feel good about myself. And I could have crazy hair, but as long as I have my sparkles, I feel good, whatever it is, right? Yeah. I think it's like really learning the kid and learning ourselves, you know, if we're thinking about us as the kid.
Yeah.
And I do think the demanding, what was it, Dave and Darlene, it's like sort of unpacking maybe why you have those expectations. And are they really your expectations or were those other people's expectations? And how important are they? Are they more important than your kid? I don't know if that's what you were saying exactly, but that's sort of how I took it.
No, that's it. I think that you're spot on because I know that at some point I'll be able to say, I'm not going to be on time and I'm not going to feel any shame about saying that. Right. And I think you're right. Like it's that reframing, like there's not an easy way if there's already been, if there's already been shame
and shoulds
and all that surrounding you, like me, I'm going to talk for me. I've already have shame. There's already been shoulds. So there's not a quick fix. There's not a phrase that we can say that's going to get me to, I'm never going to have a butler and be okay with it. It's going to just take a lot of time and discussion and conversation so that when I hear the phrase, I'm never going to have a butler, although I don't think that's the right one. It's like when I say like, I'm always going to have time blindness. Right. I'm always going to have this. Like if I'm saying this is what's going to happen, as opposed to like, I'm never going to have this. I think that's also the difference.
It's like coming from a place of like observation of what is, as opposed to like a deficiency
of what isn't. Right. Like you're like, I'm always going to choose gluten-free.
I'm always going to need support with doing daily tasks that are boring for me.
And like, right? Like Michelle, you're always gonna prefer if I order for you.
Always.
Right? Like
it's always, because it's
so much easier for you.
It is. And it's not hard for you.
Right.
To do it. Right. It's interesting. I think that's like also having those people in your life that know you. And if you know you, there's a better chance people will know you.
Yeah.
Right. And not always, but you know.
I think it's the word demanding. That's what's hitting and triggering
and
me.
it's like, you need to do what's expected of you.
Yeah.
Because it's coming from a place of saying, like, you're doing this on purpose.
Correct.
You're not getting here on time because you don't care. Or like, there's like the whatever the reasoning, the intention that they're putting on you about it is the part that's really hard, I think, with that one. So
like,
it's sort of like, what intention are you thinking, when you're saying like, you need to do what you're told, like, why do you think they're not doing it?
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing is like, is that like, you just brought out something for me. The demanding part is the time clock. Back in the day, like, guys, we had a podcast, we were talking about time and how frustrating it was for me to go to work and be on time. And it was like this really annoying thing where it's like, you can't be early. Mm-hmm. You have to just be on time. And I'm like, look, unless I'm early, I will not be on time. And so if I have to get there, so like, if you're demanding that I have to get there on time, then the accommodation should be that for me, if I get here early, I'm allowed to clock in because I'm here, I'm on time, and I'm here. But the expectation of like, no, you will get here on time. And if you get here early, that's on you. Like, that's not like, I'm not going to pay you for that. But like, do you know what I mean? Like that, how do I explain this, Michelle? Like, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I think it's like the idea that you can have an expectation, but you need to accommodate some flexibility within that expectation.
Yeah.
In order for it to be equitable.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's not about being equal. Like, one kid might have the ability to always time things perfectly and another one might not. And so, and yet on the other side of this, maybe the one who times everything perfectly doesn't have great empathy skills, but the one that has trouble time does, so it's like looking at the whole person, but also if there's a specific expectation, talking it through with them to say, how can you more times than not meet this? Right. As opposed to, just berating somebody for not.
Because it was, oh, sorry. Okay.
No, go ahead.
Because it was like, it was demanding. Like I hadn't really considered this before, but like, you will be on time. And if it was like, if you're late 3 times, then you get fired. And it's like, okay, so that's a demand and that's fine. Like, you have a right as a company for me to be on time. Absolutely. But the demand of like, I have a brain-based disorder that does not allow me to be on time. So my reasonable accommodation that I'm asking for is that I will get here early, because I could always get somewhere early, but it might be, some days it might be 15 to 20 minutes early.
Right.
And you need to let me clock in because I'm meeting your demand.
Yeah.
But like that, and at the time I couldn't have said that. And I think like now I would tell somebody like this, like if this would be the question I'd be asking at my interview. Okay, what's the demand for my time? Can I clock in early?
Right. And also, can you just lie to me and tell me I need to be there 15 minutes earlier?
No.
I'm just kidding. No.
No, because like that doesn't help, right? It's like I still have to take responsibility for my time.
I was being silly.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I was being totally just
okay.
The like maybe doesn't come through on the video, but I was not being sincere when I said that. But I do want to move on to defensive Drew.
Okay.
Or Drewanna. I don't know. What's it?
Defensive
Darcy? D. Okay.
Dee.
All right. So you are about being a good parent. You want others to see you this way. That's interesting. You see kids' respect and obedience as a reflection on you. Okay. You tend to take things personally. You may lash out and blame when feeling disrespected. If ashamed, you may avoid conflict and embarrassment. You can't talk to me that way. It's not my fault, might be things you say. Interesting. Defensive D.
Dude, that was the girl Chriselle on Sunset. The Sunset what is it? Not Sunset Boulevard. Selling the Sunset. It was like this defensiveness. It was interesting to watch her talking, like she had some fallout with somebody, and her friend, as soon as her friend said something that was like actually made her feel ashamed, like I watched this switch happen, and she's like, you can't talk, you can't say that about me. Like you can't. And she like went into this like very defensive place of like, you know, that's not okay. And you can't do that. And I was like, oh, okay. That's not helpful.
Well, I mean, I think it is in the sense of, you know, this idea of respect and obedience. I think those two words kind of hit me. Like, you might avoid things if you're feeling ashamed about what you did as a parent. Also.
Yeah, because if you don't want to take responsibility for your actions, or if you're not able to take responsibility for your actions, right, then I think people tend to get defensive. And it is interesting. Maybe this is actually, I feel like I can't talk about Selling Sunset without making spoilers, but I'm just, spoiler. If you don't want to hear about Selling Sunset, then here's your chance. But like she had a best friend, right? And her and her best friend, they had they had a difference of opinion about who her best friend was dating. And she was very judgmental about the guy. And the reality is that her friend was like, look, you know, you can have a judgment, but like, I'm in a toxic relationship. So could you please just like, you know, care about me? Because her judgments were really harsh. Like they were harsh they were very like hard J judgments, and she couldn't see the fact that she was making such a hard J judgment, like that it was to the point now like where it was her friend was feeling like an idiot and making her friend feel bad that she was like mocking her friend. So there was like both of them were having these both sides were valid, right? One friend was like, I'm in a bad relationship and that's affecting you and that's not good. But also like your judgments are affecting me. And so it's like, as soon as she's confronted with the fact that like she made these big J judgments, she couldn't, like, she just became this very defensive person. Cause it's like, no, I'm not that person. Like I'm here supporting you. I'm not, you know, I'm not that. And that to me is like where if you can't, like everyone, if you're in a relationship with somebody, any kind of relationship, you're going to screw up and you're going to mess up. And so like, if you can't acknowledge the moments that you screw up, then you're going to get defensive.
Yeah. It's interesting as I'm thinking about it. I was trying to think about when I would feel that way. Cause I think when you do have kids, they tend to figure out they don't figure it out, but it just happens where like their behaviors or the way they're being or something triggers you in some way.
Yeah.
Right. There's something about your own childhood that comes up that maybe you haven't dealt with. And it's like, what's mine and what's theirs? What's the thing that I'm struggling with? And I think when I get defensive, I was just trying to think back. It's usually because something I feel like I've screwed up on. Usually, right? Something I've done either as a parent or as a friend to somebody or whatever. And so I'm like you said, I'm struggling with owning whatever that's going. And so what's interesting to me is like you see kids' respect and obedience as a reflection on you. So if your kids aren't being obedient and they're not being respectful, then that would make you ashamed maybe. It's not something you have to apologize for, but you might feel like, that shame around it.
Like her best friend's dating a toxic man, right? And so that reflects badly on her because she has a best friend who's capable of dating a toxic man.
Right.
And it's like...
And this person you said was like kind of denigrating the community that she's involved with, right? Or whatever. So there was that. Okay,
and like, how could I possibly have a best friend who A, dates someone who's toxic, but B, also that person denigrates me and my community? Because that looks bad on me if I go back to my community and say, yeah, my best friend's boyfriend denigrates us.
Yeah, you want others to see you as someone who has a kid or a friend or whatever who is sticking up or being the way that you want to be perceived.
Yeah, like it's almost very enmeshed, right? Like it's like you should align with everything that I align with, and if you don't align with that, then there's something wrong with me because I didn't raise my kid to be this way.
Yeah, it's not my fault you're this way.
Yeah.
Is that how? Because it's like the two phrases she wrote down is "you can't talk to me that way," which I thought that was an interesting one for defensive, but and then the other one is "it's not my fault."
Yeah,
that one kind of resonated better, like more with me with like it's not my fault that you're this way or that my kid's this way or whatever. Like, maybe
I think that "you can't talk to me this way" is it's putting you on a pedestal above your kid. You're saying like, okay, I like when it comes to life, like I have more knowledge than you, so you can't talk to me that way because I fundamentally don't respect you.
But how is that defensive? You know what I'm saying? Like when you're saying not, you can't talk to me that way. Is that, I don't know. That one
like,
just
I think if like a lot of times, like when people lash out or like if they make jokes or anything like that, it's usually rooted in some kind of truth. So if a kid is saying to like, you know, the kid sees, you see everything that you see your parents full because you're there with them all the time. So if I make a judgment or I make a notice of my mom or my dad and they're saying, well, you can't talk to me like that. Like you're not allowed to see my inner working and
even
call
though
me
you
on
see
it.
my inner working.
Yeah.
I see. Right. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense to me.
You're not allowed to like see through me because I don't let anybody see through me. Yet you see through me, right? It's like you can't help
right. Like, because how can you not? Because you live in the same house.
Yeah.
Usually. And even if you don't live in the same house, you connect enough to know the real person.
Right.
Right. It's hard to stay in that space. That does make sense. Okay. I feel like with this one, the work I've had to do, and I'm not by any stretch of the imagination there yet, because I still find myself, and you know, as well as anyone, that I find myself in those defensive moments periodically.
Yeah.
But I do think getting help understanding myself was the best for me with this, right? Like it's nothing that knowing yourself and knowing what your triggers are and knowing what, you value and what you're going to fall on your sword about and what you're not, and, not caring as much about the way others see you was helpful. And this was definitely difficult for me with raising a kid who had, complex issues, right? Complex things that were going on and that don't always fit in. I wrote a little blog post that hopefully we'll post soon, but this idea of, I remembered vividly, like being in the grocery store with Josh and him having so much energy. And I would tell my girl mom friends, I'd be like, I'm always just trying to find vertical games. And they just looked at me like crazy, like what, not crazy, but just like, okay. But they had no idea what I meant. And what I meant was like, I was trying to get him to use his energy up and down instead of side to side, because he would bump into people, right? And he would bump into things and things would fall over and then you'd have to pick them up and all of that. So we always played like a jumping up and down game.
Yeah.
But those kinds of things were a lot about me worrying about what people in the grocery store were going to be thinking of me, or people, at school drop off or at whatever. And I think learning to accept and be excited, reframing, who he was helped me with this one, but that was definitely a struggle. So I can understand that feeling of, not from his point of view with me, that part I don't connect with as much, but this idea that it's not my fault my kid's this way was why I was struggling with, you can't talk to me that way, wasn't something coming from Josh to me necessarily, right? But I could see,
well, if we take it from the societal aspect of it, so society says, like, because society is constantly putting the shoulds on us, right? And we were just talking earlier about how like people have opinions about me, and I'm like, why do you have an opinion about me? Like, you can't talk to me that way. Or like, why do you have an opinion about my kid? You can't talk to me about them that way, but like that should be ultimately, I think, what the
defensiveness should be about.
Yes. It's about, like,
not about the kid to the kid themselves. Yes.
But like, I think that's where it comes from. And it's like this defensiveness of like, you just don't understand. Like, even you said, like, my girlfriends looked at me like I was crazy. And you're like, wait, no. Wasn't that was crazy? Just that they couldn't understand it. Right. So there's like this, I think this like inherent, like a little defensiveness of like, cause they probably did look at you like you were crazy. Like, I don't understand.
Well, they
what
looked
you're
at me
talking
like
about.
I was other.
Yes.
Right. And that's really what it is. It's not so much, I shouldn't put derogatory terms on it. And that's what I'm working on, is because I think crazy is an overused word and underestimated on how damaging it can be.
Yeah.
For myself to say that about myself. So it's really just kind of like they looked at me as though I was other. They looked at me like an alien and other. And that idea that this was just an experience they didn't have, I could feel judgment or defensive about it, or I could just say, well, that's not their experience as a parent. So of course they don't understand what I'm saying. I need other parents who understand, but I need other parents who understand what I'm saying.
Right.
I need other parents who have shorthand for, I'm creating vertical games, and they go, correct.
They're like, that's awesome. Wait, tell me
or
about it. Or
when I ask them, like,
how
many trampolines have you purchased in your life? They're not like, when I say 5, they're not like, oh, that's the strangest thing. Right. So it's really about connecting to community that I think can accept you also as a parent and as an adult and as a, all of it. So that you come across that less, I think.
Yeah. And when you said,
would have been helpful.
You said, feeling other, and like, I think you also tied it back to like childhood trauma. And so it's like, you have felt other, you felt other, like every time that you had to write something and spell something. So like, that other, and it's like, I think that's where like this stuff can really trigger, and it has nothing to do with the kids saying it. It could be society saying it. And then it gets, and I'm not saying this is what you're doing, but like, I think if society is telling you, like, it gets taken out on the kids sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the things that I've started to recognize more quickly, although it's not, I'm still working on it, is when I start kind of getting spinny, is like what I call it, like in this like anxiety loop where I'm like, but this, and I'm in this space where I'm not clear headed about something, then I definitely think that is trauma that's coming up. And it's important for me now to kind of say to myself, is this mine, or is this, like, if I'm acting defensively to Josh or to you or to someone else about something, it's like, it's worth a look. It's worth a curiosity. It's worth a glance inward to be like, why might I be doing this right now?
Yeah.
And not judging it, but just kind of observing it, because I think that part, it's been new for me, but I feel like I feel very grateful to have a little more capacity for that than I did before. So I empathize with people, because I do think this is one that I completely relate to. And mostly it was my own baggage coming into my parenting.
Yeah.
For me anyway. Okay. Our last one, and then we'll talk about kind of how she reframes a little bit, but do you have more to say though? Do you have more to say? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think it's really hard, especially if it's not something that's been okay in your family, to kind of go through this. And I think I'll take our family, if I can, for as an example. Like, you were the first one really to go to therapy, as far as I understand. And I remember that, you're younger by 7 years than I am, and you went through it because you were the one who, quote unquote, needed it. Right. And it's interesting to me how much support oftentimes the kids who have the complex issues get sometimes, and yet it's affecting or impacting the entire family. And your issues that you were having were not also the cause of the reason I needed to go to therapy. I think you were like the least bit of the cause, but the whole family dynamic was such that I needed support as well. So it's interesting to kind of look at it to me now, looking back and thinking like, but you were the one that paved the way for me to understand, oh, this is like helping her and I see it's helping her. I'm going to go try this too. And I was always so grateful for that with you, because I think you've been at the forefront. And I wonder if other people in our community can relate to that. Like maybe because I think a lot of, especially the people I know who have ADHD, they're so emotionally present, and that's such a beautiful gift they have as well. But then it's hard, right? If you're watching difficult things happen in your family and no one's really connecting to their own emotions and you're hyper connected to your emotions, it would make sense. It would be hard. Hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm. Sure. Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've been, since my late 20s, early 30s, gone to therapy, and pretty much consistently since then. And the last, year, I haven't been. And at one point you were saying, Michelle, I think, you need to go back. And man, was I defensive, and I just couldn't hear it at that moment. And even though I've done it for so many years, and I will say to people all the time, like you go get your teeth flossed, you got to go get your head flossed once in a while too. Like it just helps to have that check in sometimes to check up, right, as well. And I just so wanted to believe I was done also. So I empathize also with the people who, like, you've gone before, but you don't think you need it again, but maybe you do, right? And what harm is it to be curious about it and try it once and go, or for anyone to try it once, like just think of it like a little experiment, and you're just going to go see, and it, it may not be for you. But at the same time,
or to
go
go back,
back,
because like
it doesn't mean anything that you failed because you have to go back. Right.
life
I mean, and I
is
think that's my
constantly
issue.
changing. Yeah, like life is constantly
Yeah.
changing.
It's
It's
a
like,
new,
and I think that's what's interesting about like
and
the
developmental stages for kids are constantly changing. So
yeah.
who you have to be as a parent has to adjust, and it takes a lot of effort to kind of stay current with them and where they're at.
Yeah, and like Michelle, I hear like you're saying that it's hard for you because you're like you want it to be done, and I think that's what the military has given us, is that like I over time I learned that like I had to keep getting different therapists at different times, and in order to like not ruin Brian's security clearance, they would call it phase of life issues.
Mm.
And in a weird way, like that's actually why,
It's actually really good.
it's actually really good, right? Like the idea of a phase of
it's
life
a different
issue.
phase. I need help with this phase.
Because like, yeah, you're in a totally new phase of your life. And like you just
I
need
am.
help with like organizing that phase. Brian is just about to retire. I need help organizing that phase. And my doctor, like my actual doctor said, like, you used to go to therapy. Like, what do you think about that? And I was like, yep, you're right. You're right, doc. I got you. It's like, so it's a phase of life, and it doesn't mean you're still broken.
It's not going to last. Yeah. Or like it's going to last
or that it's going to be
either.
as hard as it was the first time around. Right.
Ugh.
Everything that you went through, it's like you kind of do it. You're like, that I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
That's so much work. It's like it actually gets a lot easier the longer you go to it. But yeah, just
it is true.
Even if it's just journaling, guys, like I get it. Like, so a lot of people can't afford therapists or whatever. Just journal it, just like if that's something, I know for me, like I just won't remember to journal. So that's why I have to go to somebody. I need someone to be there to like, that's why I had to go to graduate school and not like piecemeal my education. Everyone's like, oh, it'll be so much cheaper if you just don't go to graduate school and you piecemeal it. I'm like, I will never do that because I'm ADHD. Okay. Who's our third?
Okay, our last one today, it's Bootstrap Bill or
Bessie.
Bessie. Okay, great. You didn't have an easy path, but you turned out okay. School of Hard Knocks worked. They need to learn to suck it up, push through, and learn to live with disappointment. Mm-hmm. Kids have to learn that life isn't fair. Ooh.
I mean, I think that there's some reality to this.
Yeah.
Like to all of these, like there's a little bit of reality of like, you have to learn that life is hard, right? You have to learn that like,
not everything's comfortable.
You have to, not everything's comfortable. You have to learn how to attend, all of these things we've talked about. But man, like just because Bootstrap Bill and Bessie got through it, does it mean that they're healthy? Just because you picked yourself up from your bootstraps, does that mean that it was like, do you want somebody that you love to have to go through just as hard of a time as you did?
Yeah. I think
just for
it's
hard
interesting
sake.
Because just for hard sake. I think what's interesting about this one to me is I really do feel that we learn as much from our failures and the things we fall down about, and maybe more even than the things that we're successful in. So I think this idea that you need some adversity to be successful, or I don't know, successful is the wrong word, but to learn, might be true. I think it's kind of the suck it up part that is rough. When I read that to when I was listening to her, when I was listening to the audiobook and when I was writing it, like suck it up, just kind of made me think there's no acknowledgement. Maybe there's acknowledgement that it's hard, but that there's no acknowledgement that you would be supported in this, is the way I read it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't have space for your emotions around this being hard.
Yeah. Because it was hard for me. Your cramps, everyone's got cramps. This is totally the female thing. Everyone's got cramps. Suck it up, buttercup. Like, it's like I have stage 4 endometriosis. So like, my period cramps are going to be like way worse than yours are, or like than someone who doesn't. Right. So it's like there could actually be like, yes, we're always going to have cramps and we have to deal with that. We have to deal with periods. However, the magnitude of like how much it is affecting your life, like could be different based off of real things.
Right. And I think sometimes you could be ignoring something really important potentially by just cutting off the conversation. 'Cause this is like a lack of curiosity.
Yeah.
Also, right? When you're like, well, yeah, I had it hard too. I don't know. This one's interesting to me.
Aren't all of them lack of curiosity? This is more like, I think, lack of empathy as well.
Lack of empathy, yeah.
Or like, I mean, lack of empathy from for themselves as much as for the kid.
Right, their own inner child, they aren't empathetic with, maybe. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's again,
that makes sense.
Trauma enforced. It's trauma informed, and I think it's highly detrimental. I mean, as much as all of these are in totally different ways, but this one is very. Honestly, this one is easier to see than the other ones. This one, like, if you have a parent who's like this, because it's so black and white, I think it might even be easier to recover from it because it's so harsh. It's not quite as it's not as gray and nebulous and could be seen as trying to be helpful. It's very clear, like this person's just being
overt.
A jerk.
It's overt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this one is really common in our grandparents' generation.
I think that we were raised with this, which is Gen X and millennials were raised with this.
Yeah.
The boomers were raised by these people from the great generation. And then the boomers were
they kept quite a bit of it.
And then we saw the other side of it. We're like, no, we're going to go the opposite way. And then that's now why we have kids who are like, that doesn't feel comfortable for me. And it's like,
right. So it's like some combo.
Yeah.
I mean, I do feel like there are places where I talk to students right now, and I'll be, I had one in my office the other day, and she was, really upset. And it was the first time she had really, I think, failed something, right? Failed a class. And it's like, I'm like, you get to have all your emotions around this. Like, this is like, this is okay. It's all right that you're feeling like this. It's valid. And I'm like, and you could also continue, think about reframing it, and I said, one of the things you could possibly put into your mind at some point, not today, is thank goodness I've had this moment to realize the work I need to do to be able to be successful in the career I want now versus a year or 2 years or 3 years from now. And that I'm going to have to make some decisions about, how hard I want to work to get where I want to go. But at least I know where I'm starting, and that there's support. And I'm like, here's my card and we'll support you through this. But so for me, this idea of hard knocks, that you do have to learn to live with disappointment, that is not untrue.
Yeah.
It's just are you saying it so that they will stop talking?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because this is about ending a conversation, not continuing it. I think it's like when, as teachers, we say, do you have any questions? It means I'm done lecturing on this. We're moving on. That doesn't actually mean, do you have any questions, right? This one, like, suck it up. Life isn't fair. That's me putting an exclamation point and a stop sign, I think, on you talking about this anymore, potentially.
That's interesting. Like, because I think I would say that, like, all of these are ways that people put a stop sign on exploring further.
Yes.
If you've got, like,
I'm just saying this one's very obvious.
Yeah. No, I think it's
like you said.
Like, it's like so obvious. It's like, it's helping me understand all the other ones now. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's saying, okay, it's so overt that it's like, oh, that's what all of the other ones are also doing. It's just on a different level. Like, it's just not as, it's like if somebody hits you in the face, it's overt to everybody else that, like, someone that you have, like, something, like a bruise. But if someone, like, hits you with, like, an open hand, like, in your stomach, you may not bruise, and it's not overt.
Okay, let's take that as a challenge then. Let's just look through these really quick one more time.
Okay.
And you tell me how it's either stopping the conversation or if it's something else.
Okay.
Angry Ann, angry Andy. Mm-hmm. Like, you're yelling, getting frustrated, losing your temper often.
Right. Your anger is overpowering the conversation. And so you can't go any further because your anger is so much.
Okay. Super parent Sue and Steve, or whatever we said. You're keeping all the balls in the air. You'd rather do it yourself, right?
Yep.
I have to do this. I don't have any help. How is that?
You're cutting off the ability for your kid to learn, and you're just taking it on yourself. You're just stopping the conversation.
You don't even let the conversation start.
Yeah, you're stopping the conversation for sure.
Okay, lost Lois, or
Lou,
whatever.
Yeah,
Lou. Yeah. So you feel alone. You're saying things like, I don't know what to do. I feel lost and lonely.
Mm-hmm.
You're making the conversation about yourself.
You're shutting down the conversation. If you're saying I'm alone, you're actually shutting it down, and you're not even venturing out to have a conversation.
Yeah. Maxed out Maxine and Max. Okay. Overwhelmed. You don't know how to handle it anymore. I'm exhausted. How long can I keep this up?
Yeah, you're overwhelming the conversation. So you create so much overwhelm that you don't have to have a conversation because you're too tired.
Yeah. Fix it, Fran. I'll do whatever it takes to help my child. You're ping-ponging from one thing to another, trying to find a solution.
You're deciding what the end story is. Like, you're creating the narrative.
I think you're having a conversation by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, you are. You're having a conversation
internal
with yourself.
Conversation.
It's not with the kid. Yeah.
Yeah. At all. Nagging Nan, constantly reminding the kiddos to do everything they're responsible for.
You're telling them what the conversation is. You're telling them that, like, this is what's like this is where we have to go, and this is why we have to do it.
Okay. I love it. Pushover Pat. Kind and caring, don't set limits. I just want everyone to be happy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an avoiding of the conversation because you're not participating in the conversation. So you're not being a parent in order to participate in that conversation with the kid, and you're creating a kid who's like, I don't feel comfortable. Okay, great. You don't feel comfortable. You're not leading the conversation, right? You're allowing the conversation to be led by others, and you're not like injecting the parent into it.
Okay. All right. Let's think about this one. Denying Dale. Wait and see attitude. He must learn to do what he is told. Waiting for them to grow out of this stage. You're just waiting it out, right?
Yeah, I think it's like, it's almost like you're having the conversation in your head, but you're not telling the expectations to the kid. But yeah, I think it's definitely an avoidance.
Yeah, I think like the idea that you're like waiting for them to apply themselves at some point. You're like, this conversation doesn't need to happen because it's going to get fixed later.
Yeah. You're right? Delaying the conversation.
Okay, playful Dave. You love to play with your kids. You're the fun parent. I don't know what you're so worried about. It's just gaslighting, right?
Yeah, you're shrugging off, like you're sloughing it off. You're not.
Yeah.
You're just like, you're minimizing the conversation. That's what it is.
You're minimizing the conversation. Good job. All right. Distance, Dan or Dana. Why can't they just do what is expected from them? Sometimes feel like throwing in the towel.
I think you're giving up on the conversation.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Demanding. What was it, Dave or Darlene? High expectations. You need to do what is expected of you.
You're dictating the conversation.
And defensive Drew. You're worried about what other people are thinking about you. You're saying, you can't talk to me this way. It's not my fault. We just did this one.
Yeah, but in that one, like you are, I almost want to say you're demeaning it. You're demeaning the conversation by saying that like you don't get to do this to me.
And Bootstrap Bill, you said, was kids have to learn that life isn't fair.
Yeah, you're cutting off the conversation.
Cutting off the conversation. It's so interesting. One of the things she says in this book is, in this chapter, is again, kind of when you reframe things, in order to like reframe it all, like you have to really be shifting your perspective. You have to be facing like what it is that you're doing. And, it's hard when you yourself might be a complex parent. And this idea you talked about earlier in the podcast, which was like up until now, maybe these are the ways you were handling it, but now you have an opportunity to kind of look and becoming aware of which of these archetypes might fit you is sort of, or at a certain time even. And I'm still having to do this as Josh is changing. I'm still changing, right? All these things are going. But becoming aware of that, becoming aware of our choices, and kind of like shifting our perspective about it if we can, and then in order to actually make long-lasting change, we have to like believe, she says, like there's a belief that your influence, like that you can actually influence the circumstances.
Yeah.
That you have the ability to change how you are behaving. And that can impact the relationship you're then going to have.
I think it's so interesting that it's taken us 3 sessions to like just get to this, just to get through this. Because what I'm learning now after having been with this for 3 weeks is that this conversation that we're talking about is the repair. It's the repair that I'm always talking about. Is that like, when you're in a relationship, when you're parenting, when you're with somebody else, there are going to be things in life that are hard, that are not easy, and you have to find ways to repair and to communicate about life and like what's happening and like what you're observing. And I think like this idea of up until now is the repair. Up until now is the way that we repair our trauma that we have inflicted on our children or on ourselves, right? I have inflicted a lot of trauma
or on our
myself.
pets or on our coworkers or on our whatever, right? Yeah.
On our relationships. It's like if you love somebody, you are going to hurt them. That is just an honest truth. And you're going to hurt them because you've been hurt. And I should say, I'm going to hurt them. I'll say for me, I'm going to hurt people because I've been hurt. And all of these archetypes are ways that when I am hurt and when I am triggered in certain ways, I will respond to that situation in all of these different types and archetypes. It just depends on the situation. And when that occurs, I have the opportunity to say, up until now, yes, it occurred, but now I can repair. Up until now, I responded that way, and I now have the opportunity to repair that because I've at least acknowledged this is the archetype that's happening. This is what's occurring because of my trauma. And I don't want that to now. Yeah, I don't want that to affect our relationship.
I think the other thing is that sometimes any of us might do something that triggers the other person unbeknownst to us, right? It's not intentional, and you're not hurting because you were hurt. You just are who you are. And that is a pothole you did not realize you were going to hit with this person, right? Or they didn't realize that they were going to hit sometimes. And I do think there's that aspect too of just because we are other than one another, we're not the same people. Sometimes the way you act or the way you say something, and I don't mean you, but just the generalized you, like the way somebody says something or does something can cause things to come up in us.
I mean, I think that's true. Like there are things that Brian will say or do that he's not intentionally trying to.
His intention is not that.
Yeah. But like, I just think that any of those landmines, they are informed by trauma. And it's not
Agreed,
that the person is, so I think what you're saying that like, maybe what you're saying is like the person is like, the person's not trying to cause trauma on me, but I am reacting to a trauma that is not. I
experience it that way. Yeah.
I'm reacting to a trauma that is nothing to do with them, but is still within my lived experiences.
Yes.
And I was thinking of something else and I've completely forgotten.
Well, there we go. That's the perfect time to stop then. One of the things she talks about later, and we'll kind of come back to this, I think, is sort of strategies to be consciously managing triggers. And I think that's hard to do in oneself oftentimes, but if you see your partner or your kid being triggered, that there's ways to kind of manage that. And I don't know that it always works, but I'm curious, and I will be curious to go through this with you next time. So I think we've got one more episode in this chapter because this one was meaty. Like this whole chapter was meaty, but this particular strategy I think might be meaty. So I'm excited to see if we can actually have a strategy. But the first strategy I think we did come to today was being aware. Being aware.
Awareness.
Right. Be awareness. And that you do have the ability to change perspective on things with support potentially, or with writing or with reflection. And that hopefully also, in addition to changing that perspective, is that the idea that the belief that the relationship, if you're struggling with any relationship with someone, especially who has complex issues, but any relationship really, that there is ability to change how that relationship is going. And I will say that from my perspective with you, that the work that we each have individually done to become aware, more aware of who we are and what triggers we have, to me has bettered our relationship over the years, even though it is complex, and we are both complex humans.
No, that's absolutely true.
And it's not easy, but not easy always.
And there are days we don't have easy conversations, and it's really hard. But I think like what I'm learning
this
is
chapter
that, like,
is a good example of one.
Oh my God. Right.
Oh, there's a
Do we tell
podcast, y'all.
people?
We will not air.
We
Just
will
letting
not
you
air.
all know. We will not air this one. No, it's like, you know, because it's one thing like we're sisters and you're like, oh, some people are always like, it's so great. It's like we're sitting in the family living room with you and like we're on the couch listening to you just talk to each other. And that is true. But there is another truth as well, which is,
Well, I think we've shown a little bit
yeah,
of
we do
of
show
like
it.
our
Yeah.
hard stuff. I think
Yeah.
there's a point though, like where it's like sometimes it's like you're sitting and you're listening to somebody, you're like, I really shouldn't be here right now. Like this is not a
I
conversation.
believe that was also the Selling Sunset.
Yeah, I'll probably take that out.
No, I'm saying like, no, don't take it out. I'm just saying, I
Oh.
think like if somebody watched that episode,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
you showed me just a little bit of it at the end. And it
Yeah.
was like one of those where it's like, it's so uncomfortable. It's very real, but it's actually not constructive.
Yeah.
Right. And we try to air things that are real and constructive for others. And when we feel like it was something we needed to go through, you and I needed to go through, and it was really important, but it wasn't necessarily something that we think would be constructive for others because it didn't have a real through line.
Yeah.
Then we don't air that. And I kind of felt like that about that part. I mean, I don't watch Selling Sunset, but you had me listen to it last night and I was like, oof, this one feels like one they should have redone or something.
Oh,
it just
totally. And you
was
hear like
too
Tan
much.
Fran who's just like, and moving on, you know, you're like, okay, well, what's the point? Like if you're moving on, like what's the point? You know, like you really should have a
But
therapist
they needed
there.
a therapist. Yeah, they needed a therapist there because this was like, it was harsh. Yeah. That's where we kind of go like, should our like group therapy have happened between you and I, then we don't air that one. So sorry, everybody, but that's a boundary we're having and we're sticking to it.
Yeah. And I think like when it comes down to these archetypes, I think these archetypes help us to understand our triggers. And when we're putting this, like when we start getting into, you know, denying or demanding or, you know, fixing or any of these, if we're starting to find ourselves doing this, you know, maybe like it's not, maybe you've had therapy and it's not like really, but like you have these moments where you're starting to go down that route, or if you're noticing it, like I think these are just great ways to help you realize like there's something going on there and maybe I should be more curious about what's happening. Because if you're getting triggered, you know, these archetypes are a sign that you're being triggered. And then the question is like, is the lesson you're teaching your kid or yourself that the trigger needs to be like your trigger needs to be fixed, or are you actually teaching them something that's going to help them become a better person?
And I think it kind of goes back to in her first chapter was like, what are your values as a parent? Mm-hmm. You know, what are your values in your relationships with people? Because if what you value is knowing them, then maybe you'll come from a different perspective. So if, you know, I don't know what anyone's value is specifically, right? But I think it's a good thing to consider. Does this match the way I'm acting, the way I'm interacting? Does this match my ultimate value, my ultimate goal with my kid? And I will say this of having an 18-year-old about to graduate from high school. It's short. The time is short that we have with our people. And it's important, I think, to remember. I always say parenting is like an 18-year interview. And they're no longer required by law to know you at 18, right? They might need you, right, for various things, but they aren't required to be there anymore. And so to me, my goal at least was always to hopefully have an adult son who wanted to keep knowing me.
Yeah.
You know, and that I could keep knowing. So I think it's an interesting continued conversation that we'll keep having. But I love this idea that these archetypes are there to just kind of maybe have like a little mirror to like let you look, or a little lens to look through to see, is this something I need to spend a little bit more time with maybe? And dig a little deeper to figure out why I might be reacting this way.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I love you.
I love you too.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Spicy Brain Podcast, brought to you by Spicy Brain Studios. We finally wrapped up the archetypes from The Essential Guide to Raising a Complex Kid. And if you saw yourself in more than one, you're definitely not alone. Next week, we're going to dive into a powerful strategy for consciously managing triggers. There's 4 steps to escaping the stress cycle. Make sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And guys, if you're enjoying the show, leaving us a review really does help other neurospicy folks find their way here too. But until then, here's to a great end of the week. And remember to stay curious
and joyful
with a whole lot of radical acceptance. High kick.